Hello and welcome to Morehouse's Math Menagerie, where outliers are always welcome. Today, we're going to do a practice-free response question dealing with association of categorical variables. A study among the Pima Indians of Arizona investigated the relationship between a mother's diabetic status and the number of birth defects in her children. The results appear in the two-way table. What proportion of women in this study had a child with one or more birth defects? To answer this question, we would want to look at the total who had one or more birth defects out of the total number of women in the study. If we add up all these one or more birth defects here, we end up with 53. And if we add up all of the women who were in the study, we get 1,207. Dividing that on our calculator, we get 0.0439. So a little bit more than 4%. What percent of women in this study were diabetic or pre-diabetic and had a child with one or more birth defects? Looking at our table, that would include these 13 mothers here and the 9 mothers over here. Adding those together, we would get 22 out of 1,207. And if we do the math there on that, we get 0.0182. So almost 2%. The last question in this problem asks us to describe the nature of the association between mother's diabetic status and the number of birth defects for the women in this study. So here we're going to have to look at some conditional probabilities. If we look at it by row first, if we add up the row, we get 1154 for no birth defects and 53 for birth defects. If we go through and divide each of the values in this first row by 1154, we get 0.65. That's a horrible 6 there, sorry about that. Here we get 0.31. And on the end we get 0.03. Those are just kind of rounded values. In our second row, when we divide by 53, we get 0.58. That's a little bit far off from our 65, but not bad. For our second value, we get 0.24. Again, a little bit off, but not bad. But this last value here, 9 divided by 54, we get 0.16. This shows that there is a significant difference in the proportion of diabetic mothers who had none or one or more birth defects. So at this point, we could stop and say that there is an association between diabetic status and number of birth defects because of the difference in these two proportions. Now, just to be thorough, I'm also going to show if we had done the conditional probabilities by the columns instead of the rows. If we added each column up, we'd get 785 for the first column, 375 for the second column, and then 47 here for the last column. If we found the conditional probabilities, here we get 0.96 and 0.04 for the first column. The second column ends up matching it perfectly, 0.96 and 0.04. And the last column ends up being 0.8 and 0.2. And again, as we look across these columns, you'll notice the first two are the same and the third one is very different. So this also supports that there is an association between diabetic status and number of birth defects. I hope you found this video helpful. I'll leave you with this quote by the great football coach Vince Lombardi. Thank you for joining us and have a great day.